Hello, everyone. Recently my bicycle was stolen as I left it outside for 2 nights, locked, of course, and in a place with cameras. Well, at the mall, basically. But I was quite naive, and truly, I didn't think that it could actually be stolen. Now, as it happened, I decided that it would be a nice reason to talk about the theft rates and feelings of security in my country. So, I personally have encountered theft only twice in my life, I think. The second one is this case, and the first one was long ago in my childhood when my phone dropped from my pocket as I was riding a bicycle. I noticed the loss too late and ran out the whole way back but couldn't find it. Technically, it's my fault for losing it. But, you know, the guy who found it could call any number from the phone and tell that it is missing and bring it back. But he chose to keep it for himself. It was a relatively new phone that my parents bought me. I knew it was expensive for us, and that's why I was so sad. I cried. And now it happened again. But this time, it was a way more expensive thing, yeah? A bicycle, which I bought for my own money. It had been about a year since I bought it, and what's funny about all this situation is that the strongest feeling I felt was the annoyance. The annoyance that I had to walk home on my feet. Truly, I just didn't really like that bicycle. I messed with it a lot. The seat was constantly tilting while riding, although the fixation was maximum. I tried. The steering column was wobbly. I didn't understand how to install the bearings properly, and the parts, they rusted very quickly. Although this may have been partly my fault, yeah, but still, I just wish the thieves enjoy all of this to the fullest. Actually, thievery is a common problem in our society. We build fences, we lock up our doors, we do not leave things unattended in public, and all of that is for a reason. It's just me who, on the one hand, didn't quite believe that my bike could be stolen, and on the other hand, deep down wanted it to be stolen because I was already pretty sick of that bicycle. But now I'm I'm going to be more cautious about my stuff, of course. You know, as I think about this topic, I memorize more and more such stories. My grandma, for example, told me a couple of them. She lived in a house with my grandfather. It happened around 20 years ago. So the robbers waited until no one was home. She went to the groceries for only about 30 minutes while my grandpa was at work. And in the meantime, they arrived on a bicycle, climbed over the fence, and passed scrap metal from the yard. Oh, my grandparents were just scrap metal collectors. So the thieves loaded everything they could onto the bike and left in broad daylight. It seems it took them only several minutes to pull this off, which is kind of impressive. Another time, they or maybe other adventurers, tried something else when my grandfather was at the house, but drunk. You think they didn't dare to try? Of course they did. It was the perfect opportunity for them. I don't know how they came to this idea. Maybe they knew my grandfather pretty much. Yeah. They took advantage of his condition. So they knocked on the window and politely asked for water. These poor good people, they were so thirsty. How my trusting old man couldn't help them. He let them in, and of course, they stole his phone while he treated them. And if these stories happened decades ago, the situation now probably hasn't changed. At the appliance store where my friend works, it happens regularly. For example, a customer can take around headphones, you know, examine them, twirl in hand, put on the neck, and even talk to a consultant. Then leave with them nonchalantly. The loss is discovered much later when the goods are recounted at the end of the shift. Unfortunately, there are no security guards in many such shops, and responsibility for the safety of the goods, as well as cleaning the floors and unloading of goods, by the way, falls on the sales consultants. You may ask why I or the shop or my grandparents didn't go to the police, even though we have cameras in the place, or at least we remember faces. It's because they simply won't do anything in such cases. Maybe they'll do something sometimes, but I, as many others, have lost trust in them for a long time now. I did go to the police though, once, but it was about a different matter. I'm a little embarrassed to tell you this, but I gave 2,500 rubles to a stranger in the street. The situation was absurd. I was going to university, and a tall, substantial man in a business suit walked up to me. He told a touching story about how he lost his wallet and couldn't get home. I first tried to give him some money for a bus, but he rejected my offer with his hand. No. He claimed he had come to Volgograd for work and lost his trunk, which, of course, contained all his documents and money. So he needed more money, no, for a train ticket to get back home. Everything was wrong with him, starting with a non Russian accent and ending with the fact that he had a working smartphone. You know what normal people would do in such situation with a smartphone? They simply would call their friends or relatives to help them out. But think about it. Instead, he decided to come up to a stranger and give him his contact to convince him that he would definitely return the money. I actually suspected the deception from the very beginning, honestly, but I just got curious. I asked, for example, where he was from, and he said from Germany, but I was sure that his accent was not German. I don't know what came into me, but I said that I believe him. I said I wanted to believe. He asked for 2,500 rubles, but I didn't have that much money on me, so we went to the nearest ATM. On the way, we had a little chat. Then I came into a grocery store and he waited outside in order not to be too suspicious, I guess. It was the last opportunity for me to think about it without the pressure from him. You know, smart thoughts haunted me, but I withdrew the money faster. So I gave him the money. He thanked me, of course, and we walked back where we met because I still had to go to class. On the way, he greeted some migrant workers, as it seemed to me. Remember that he's visiting for work or business trip, yeah, and has no one to turn to in his situation in this city. In the end, we parted ways. As you might guess, he never returned the money, although he didn't block the contact he gave me. He responded and continued to convince me that he would return the money soon, with serious mistakes in words, by the way. I realized I was scammed pretty quickly and decided to go to the police. They listened to me. I even showed them his face from his WhatsApp profile picture and his voice from WhatsApp messages. We filed the report, but nothing has happened since then. Uh, more than 3 years, by the way. I realize now that scammers like him are too persistent. They press on emotions, on sympathy and kindness of people. They stick so much that you feel guilty refusing them. So be aware of such a scam. There are many of them, in our city at least. I've met around four more after him who tried the same scheme. They weren't as diligent though. They told obviously a memorized story. They talked very quickly and without proper intonation. Of course, I immediately refused them because you have to be a complete idiot to fall for this trick twice. Alright, at this point, you might think, okay, you can lose your stuff here if you're too naive, but if you look after your stuff carefully and don't give it away left and right, everything is going to be fine. And you'll be right. It's probably the typical story for most countries, too. And now, I'd like to share another bit of all this crime topic. We call them gopniki. These are people from the street, from the courtyards, who can stop you and persistently ask for something, usually money or your phone, or simply beat you up and take the money and phone away. They appeared as the subculture in the 70s. The 90s was their peak of prosperity when the familiar attributes were formed, like tracksuits, short haircuts, sunflower seeds, and criminal jargon. You've probably seen such a guy in some memes about Russia. Even though they were already gradually disappearing when I was in mid school, I really was afraid of walking the empty streets in my town because I actually studied with such kids in one class and I knew I could bump into them somewhere there. But after I graduated, fortunately, I never saw them again. And I think this subculture is finally over. Now, I think it's enough information for now. There is still some issues and a big issue. I'm quite concerned about, but can't raise it just yet. All I can say is this will become a serious problem for our country pretty soon. But for now, that is it. Hope it was interesting. I wish you a good day. Until next time.